going to be leading these evenings from here on out, right, Andrew?
That's right. We'll be live till 11 p.m. Mountain Time, 1 a.m. Eastern. For the foreseeable future, it's usually just been me. Daytona is coming on to this time slot, so we're going to change some things up here and hopefully bring you still some great content, even if it is quite late at night. And so we're going to start with the story, Daytona, breaking yesterday, and the reaction is coming in from the Bay Area, San Francisco. So after a 7-hour meeting, the San Francisco United School District, the school board voted to rename 44 district schools, more than a third of all of them in the city. Lincoln, Washington, Dianne Feinstein, Sutro, that's Adolph Sutro, a former mayor of San Francisco, among them to be renamed. They have until April 19th to suggest new names. And Daytona, the backlash is coming in. Replacing the signage at the 44 schools will cost more than $400,000. A lot of critics of this say that they're canceling all of these American heroes, including Lincoln, Jefferson, and Washington, among a long list of men and women who are named after, these schools are named after, include the former President William McKinley, former President James Garfield, James Monroe, Herbert Hoover, the Revolutionary War hero Paul Revere, and the author Robert Louis Stevenson. This is coming to us from the San Francisco Chronicle, and this reporter's tweet at the moment. Mayor London Breed, though, rebuked the plan in October as offensive, saying the school board should be focused on reopening schools closed during the pandemic rather than renaming them. Also, a former press secretary for President Obama retweeted that essentially with the same sentiment. Why is the school board focused on this in San Francisco? That vote, by the way, was 6-1, so almost unanimous in agreement here. For example, school staff and families, like this tweet suggests, have until April to suggest new names for the schools. And so Daytona, at this point, it seems like a done deal. I don't know what happens next. We wanted to say that we reached out to the San Francisco United School Board. We wanted to have a member of the school board come on NewsNOW and talk about this decision. They didn't offer a member of the school board their press contact, but they did send over a press release and a link to the meeting itself, which we're going to show you a part of. It was an 8-hour-long meeting. It was very long, but we're just going to show you the part where the discussion was going back and forth. They took public comments from people who live in the Bay Area about this change. And so this is kind of indicative of a larger theme and trend we've been seeing over the last several years, especially in these liberal enclaves, these progressive bastions around the United States, who are actively working to kind of, strip down what a lot of people would suggest and defend as, exemplars of American history. We're talking about Lincoln and Jefferson and Washington.
Yeah.
I know. So it's very controversial, Daytona.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I'm reading that a report says that replacing a signage at these 44 schools will cost more than $400,000 plus other related costs. A lot of people in opposition to this move saying, do we really need to be spending money on this right now rather than issues that are at hand in the middle of this pandemic? $400,000 to rename schools that some would argue are named after really important people, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, others. So this is definitely an interesting topic that will probably be met with a lot of angry parents, a lot of angry residents in the San Francisco area, I imagine.
Yeah, just a final thought on this before we play out the part of the school board meeting from yesterday. My first thought was, if we're not naming schools after these American heroes, what's next? Will we, not learn about them? Will elementary school, middle school, high school students, will school officials like this around the country, will they decide to kind of, strip their memory from curricula across the country in academic circles, in high schools and middle schools? What happens to learning about these revered figures in our national story, in our national fabric. Will we, if buildings aren't named after them, what's next?
Yeah, so like we said, here on News Now from Fox, we want to give you context for everything that's going on, but we also want to show you exactly what those conversations are looking like. So we're going to play out from the San Francisco School Board. That decision that went down today, it was 8 hours long, but I don't think we have enough time to play out that whole thing. Do you, Andrew? I kind of want to go home tonight, don't you?
No, we're only going to play a part of it. Just it got quite contentious. People felt very empowered, emotional about this. Some people, it was a Zoom call with a lot of these stakeholders on the call, the board members and faculty, public comments and things like that. For a lot of people in the Bay Area who went to these schools, and they remember them, they have memories of them, and they didn't think twice that they were named after former presidents Lincoln, Jefferson, Washington. They just went to get to school, to get their elementary, middle school, high school educations.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of public comment on stuff because it's so accessible with virtual. So this is a virtual conference, and we'll play it out for you here.
Please raise your hand at this time. Seeing one hand, President Lopez.
All right, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, Amy. Hello, Amy.
Hi, am I making comment about a particular issue? I'm sorry, I don't know what the issue is.
It's the consent calendar. So all of the items that are listed on a consent calendar, you can speak to. It's not one of the presented topics of the evening, mainly contracts, et cetera.
Okay, and so I'm sorry, I'm a little caught off guard. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, so yeah, maybe you had your hand up for something else. And if you don't want to speak to consent calendar, you can just come back later.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right. That concludes public comment, President Lopez.
Thank you. Any items withdrawn or corrected by the superintendent?
No, there are not.
Okay. Any items removed for first reading by the board? Any items severed by the board or superintendent for discussion and vote tonight?
No.
Seeing none. Roll call vote on consent calendar.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Bogus? Mr. Bogus?
Aye.
Ms. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Lamb?
Yes.
Mr. Maliga?
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Ms. Hines Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Correa Almanza?
Yes.
Thank you, and that's 7 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Costco. Moving on to section H, discussion and vote on consent calendar resolutions severed for separate consideration. There are none tonight. Section I, proposals for action. Item 1, resolution number 211-12A1, amendment to resolution number 184-10A1 in support of a formal process in the renaming of San Francisco Unified School District schools, adopted May 22nd, 2018, being introduced by Commissioner Sanchez. Moved and seconded.
Sorry.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Moved and seconded on January 12th, 2020. It is now before the board for action. Commissioner Sanchez, can you read the resolution into the record?
Yes, thank you. Whereas the San Francisco Board of Education adopted resolution number 184-10A1 in support of a formal process in the renaming of San Francisco Unified School District schools on May 22nd, 2018, committing the district to changing names of schools named for historical figures who engaged in the subjugation and enslavement of human beings, or who oppressed women, inhibiting social progress, or whose actions led to genocide, or who otherwise significantly diminish the opportunities of those amongst us to the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas a blue ribbon panel of community leaders was formed and has met for more than 1 year to examine school names and set up a process for identifying names for change. And whereas the panel has forwarded the names of more than 40 school sites for potential renaming to the district leadership, with an end date of April 19th, 2021, for suggested new names to be reviewed by the panel, at which time the panel will make its final recommendations for new names to the Board of Education. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education review and sanction the panel's list of school names for potential renaming.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. So we are now going to open it up to public comment, and I wanted to share how we will set up this process. I'm going to allow for 1 hour of public comment.